Uh, Hi, good afternoon, one and all. Today, we are gathered here for panel discussion on question practices. Before we start, uh, uh, we have a medical affair head. He would be he is there in the session now, but he has other meeting scheduled on. He will leave the session soon, maybe after 5 minutes. I just wanted to inform that. Sir, you want to convey any information, sir?
एक काम कर, तू राकेश को बात कर ले ना, मैं राकेश को बोलता हूँ, राकेश का नहीं होगा तो मुझे एक्सप्लेन नहीं क्या वेबिनार हाँ वेबिनार आज
Okay.
Your meeting is group plan.
Okay. Myself, Mahaling Uppin, a CS clinical specialist at Folly Medicure. I would give it gives me a great pleasure to welcome you all. Today we have gathered virtually here to have a panel discussion on flushing practices. It feels a privilege and honor to welcome esteemed leaders of this panel discussion. I welcome Ms. Swati Mehta, GM Nursing and Cluster Head of Medicover Hospital, Hyderabad. I also welcome other panelists, Ms. Pramila, Chief Nursing Officer, Aware Glen Angle Global Hospital, LB Nagar, Hyderabad. I also welcome Ms. K. Jivita, Assistant General Manager, Nursing Training and Education, Yashoda Hospital. I also welcome another panel member, Ms. Swarani Aluri. She is an ICN and nursing educator at Premier Hospital. I also welcome other panel members and audience to the panel discussion. I would like to give a brief intro of our today's moderator. She is Ms. Swati Mehta, GM Nursing and Cluster Head, Medical Hospital. She has overall 20 years of experience in nursing profession. She has done graduation in nursing. She has also done her MHM Healthcare Management from IIHMR Jaipur. She has started her career from bedside nursing and moved on to different higher level job responsibilities, like she served as a nursing superintendent in Kaminini Hospital, Hyderabad, and she also served Apollo Hospital as a nursing superintendent, and also in the same organization as Cancer Institute. She also served as nursing superintendent in Apollo Chennai. She has also published many of her scientific paper and journals. She has also received various awards and recognition, like one of the prestigious awards like Florence Nightingale, and other awards like Best Nurse Award, Best Nurse Manager, Best Disaster Team Award. And there is a lot more to tell about Swati ma'am, but we have a time restriction. So I would like to stop here, and I would request Swati ma'am to welcome other panel member, and over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Mahaling. It's nice intro to listen about me myself. So welcome to all my colleagues and my team members and all my panelists. So first, I would like to welcome Ms. Pramila Korampalli, who is working with Chief Nursing Officer at Aware Clinicals Global Hospital. So her qualification is she has completed her post BSc and MBA Hospital Administration, Healthcare Management from NIBM Institute. So she has Six Sigma course. She has completed from Wi-Fi Technologies, and she got trained certified with JCI Internal Audit Assessor through Six Sigma. And my colleague also has overall, I know her very well. She has 19 years of experience in nursing fraternity, being a nursing profession. Beginning her career, she started her career with like me. I started my career with emergency nurse and medical ICU. Same like Pramila also started her career with CT ICU nurse. And she rolled out many leadership positions, and she has been working with Ramesh Cardiac. Before she worked with experience with Ramesh Cardiac as a nursing superintendent, and she worked in Yashoda Hospital, Secunderabad, and she worked as a nurse. She started her career in Yashoda Hospitals. So she has completed her college in St. Teresa Hospital. So I would like to welcome, and she has been ANEA membership in the year of 2021, and she is registered Infusion Nurses Society in India for 2021, and she has done many workshops, and now she's working with Parkway Pentai Group entirely, and she was mentoring by Jyoti Clara ma'am. I would like to welcome you, Ms. Pramila, and you have received many honors and I know many accomplishments in your career. So without wasting much thing, she has attended even JCA workshop and improving IV medication practices. Today's our topic. I think we have hot debates and hot panel discussions on this topic about discussion on our flushing techniques and practices. So my colleagues will agree with me. So I would like to welcome behalf of everyone, Ms. Pramila.
Thank you, Ms. Swati.
Welcome you. So next panelist, Ms. K. Jeevitha. I know very well Jeevitha last 10 years. So we have met many conferences. So Ms. Jeevitha is working as an Assistant General Manager Nursing Training Education in Yashoda Hospitals, Hyderabad. She has completed her BSc Nursing and she has done Nursing Excellence Certification course from Bangalore. She has vast exposure and experience in NABH, almost 8 NABH accreditation audits she has went through, and she is an internal auditor. And her work experience overall, she has 11 years of experience, and her career, she started with staff nurse and she moved into various roles in same organization in Yashoda. Now she's taking care of complete education, training and development for young nurses for preparing curriculum and actively involving in nursing education. So I welcome Ms. Jeevitha, young leader with energetic, enthusiastic training educational activities in Yashoda Group, which you are dealing. So right now she's working as an educator from since 2012 to till now she's working, and she has various workshops she has been organized and she conducted in her curriculum. And she is a state level conferences, IPSG and workshops in emergency nursing trauma care, and many state level CNEs she has been organized along with her nursing team. She is one of the core member in Yashoda to actively participate and leading a best example for youngsters. I welcome you, Ms. Jeevitha, behalf of everyone from my panelist. Welcome to you, Ms. Jeevitha. Hi, Jeevitha. I think you're here.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Yeah. Yes. Last but not least, a young leader, upcoming leader, and she was so enthusiastic and energetic person, Miss Swarani Alluri. Right now, she's working in Premier Hospital. Premier Hospital is a 100-bedded hospital located in Mehdipatnam. She's working as a ICN cum nursing educator in Premier Hospital. She'll take care of infection control department and nursing education role. She's a multitasker, I can see by CV. So she has completed her post BSc nursing from NTR University. She also working as a NABH coordinator in internal coordinator in her hospital and many hospitals. She has exposure with NABH protocols. And Miss Swarani also has 10 years exposure in nursing profession, and her career she started with staff nurse into the ward setup, and she worked in various ICUs and she has started her career path. And right now she's working as a nurse educator and infection control nurse role. So I think this young leader, I really would like to meet you, Miss Swarani, and I wanted to listen from your voice. So many good points. Being a practical nurse, being role model for infection control team. So I would like to welcome behalf of every panel member. Welcome Ms. Swarani Alluri. Thank you.
Thank you, madam.
Okay. So now, without wasting much time, welcome on behalf of Polymed, Dr. Ajit Guha. I think I know he's a backside of the screen, and he's a very good innovative and clinical innovative perspective team person. Dr. Ajit Guha, I personally, behalf of everyone, my team members, I am welcoming you. Dr. Ajit Guha, behalf of Polymed, behalf of our panel members. I know you're a very good provoked speaker, and you will always involve nursing leaders into many clinical innovations and clinical practices. I know how much you're putting your efforts to get these forums and make it useful for other nurses. I know how much nursing fraternity salute to your practices, what you wanted to bring evidence-based practices into the forum. So core activities which you wanted to tie up with the nursing leaders to bring in one platform. I would like to welcome behalf of my team, Dr. Ajit Guha, behalf of Polymed. So I think you are in Polymed. I know you're Polymed Medical Affairs, but behalf of your team members, Mahalingam and Sivaram, I'm welcoming you along with them. Last but not least, I would like to welcome Mr. Mahalingam as well as Ms. Sivaram. I know they are also working towards into the nursing profession to bring in one platform, various forums. They wanted to bring leaders into one platform to make efficacy of what is patient care, how best, what kind of best practices we have to use, what you want to be dealt with evidence-based practices. So they were working very closely to all nursing leaders, and they were bringing into one forum, and they have driving this force backside of the seat. I know Mr. Siva and Mahalingam personally, they'll come and interact very well with all leaders. So I would like to welcome both of you, Mr. Siva and Mr. Mahalingam, once again to this topic. So without wasting much time today, I would like to go about topic. Today our webinar, we are dealing about panel discussion on flushing practices. I think many nurses know what is flushing practices. Nurses know about how to do cannulation. After cannulation, what kind of cannulas we have, how many invasive lines we are practicing. There are many invasive lines in our practices. Like when you take care of patient, if your patient is in ICU, critical care especially, when you're dealing with cardiothoracic patient, either when you're dealing with critically ill patient with many lines, you may have PICC lines, you may have central lines, you may have IV lines, you may have external jugular, you may have internal jugular, you may have IJV fistulas, and you may have AV fistulas. So these kind of lines, when you are dealing, especially when we are dealing invasive lines, as a nurses, it's our prime responsibility to take care of invasive lines. Because as a nurse, we have to take responsibility to prevent and eradicate catheter-related bloodstream infections. Last time when I discussed about topics, I have given even trends, and I have given numbers on how much percentage mortalities are affecting to CRBS worldwide, and how much people were suffering with CRBSA. And that data was I presented in last webinar. So even my friends will agree with me, whoever sits here and outside of this forum. So many patients are suffering with CRBS where nurses negligency. I cannot say negligency. Out of busy schedule, when you have compromising manpower, sometimes out of busy, we may not encourage to use our nurses. Youngsters are not able to use appropriate sterile techniques where patients are getting infected and CRBSA rates are going high. So this is the reason which I wanted to brief about this webinar on flushing practices. Mahaling, can you share the screen, please? I'll go about directly into the topic. So, you know what kind of invasive lines we are using in intensive care setup, even outside of the intensive care. Even wards, we have PICC lines. In chemo ports, we are using chemo ports, and we are using internal jugular, external jugular, and venous catheter accesses. So, Mahalingam, can you share the screen, please? My PPT, can you share it?
Sure.
Yeah.
Can you see it now?
No, I'm not able to see.
Just a minute, just.
So every nurse know what is flushing practices. What kind of flushing practices we were using, we know. So I'm just giving a list of information about flushing practices, just about small intro about flushing. Flushing of VAD is a crucial intervention that facilitates, one second. Yeah. So that facilitates a proactive approach in relation to maintaining catheter patency and its function. It also supports complication prevention, surveillance, and for early escalation. Absent, untimely or ineffective flushing can cause catheter malfunction and result in associated complications such as occlusion, thrombosis, infection, which can increase patient morbidity and mortality. Adding to this point, even Mahaling, we can, sorry, not Mahaling, the thrombosis as well as extravasation. So it may also increase patient morbidity and mortality. Maintaining the function of VADs for patient is thereafter an essential responsibility that should be carried out by skilled health professionals. It doesn't mean that nursing healthcare professionals are very important to maintain VADs. VADs are nothing but, vascular access devices. This is very important. As a nurse, we need to maintain our IV invasive lines appropriate manner to handle thoroughly. And what is intravenous flushing? Flushing and locking of an intravenous catheter is defined as a manual injection of 0.9% sodium chloride or called normal saline. In order to clean the IV catheter, it is used to push any residual medication or fluid through IV line and into the veins. This keeps the IV line clean and reduces the risk of infection or occlusions and prevent VAD-related complications. I think many of my colleagues will agree with me. We are monitoring VAD because when you insert any catheter, we will follow definitely phlebitis tracker. I think every hospital have best practices of following to prevent VAD infections, CRBSA infections. Phlebitis tracker we are following. Phlebitis tracker I'm not going to deal here because everybody is aware, and I think every hospital is auditing about what is thrombophlebitis and how to prevent thrombophlebitis, how to prevent these occlusions, and how we will prevent extravasations. Everything, the slides can be shared. So when we wanted to feed flushing techniques, so what kind of methodology you have to use, what kind of techniques you have to use. Proper flushing techniques are effective. Inexperienced nurses, if your nurses are not trained very well and if they are incapable to handle things, so this is very important. As a nurse, you are not able to do appropriate techniques, or if you are not follow appropriate skill how to flush the cannula, you may lead into occlusions. Either catheter may rupture, or sometimes it may not be in the vein, it may get extravasation also. So every nurse should remember that efficacy of catheter and maintenance of catheter, and you have to maintain bundle checklist. I think every hospital is following bundle checklist using appropriate techniques of effective mechanism. If you if you're not following good clinical practices, definitely patient may fall into CRBSI, patient may fall into VAD devices infections, so patient may fall into extravasation. So to maintain catheter patency and prevent the mixing of incompatible medications that may precipitate and occlude the lumen. So remember, especially when you are handling high-end antibiotics, whenever you are handling hypotonic solutions and hypertonic solutions, whenever you are using patients who are with osmolarity high, and patients who are receiving blood transfusion, patients who are receiving inotrope support, patients who are receiving cytotoxic drugs, especially chemotherapy management. When you're handling a patient with chemotherapy management, either narcotic supports or inotropic support, or when you're handling high-end antibiotics, if your catheter is patency is not there, we may definitely fall into infections. So to prevent that infection, the flushing technique is very important to maintain the patency of line. So to assess catheter function, identifying malfunction and minimizing the risk of occlusions and thrombus, this is very important technique where nurse has to take an initiation. Our nurses think this is a small procedure, why they are insisting so much. This is a small procedure, but there is a major risk. A patient may land up with high morbidity, either mortality. When you take out the worldwide infection rates, the CRBSA rates and VAD rates are going too high because of lack of knowledge, lack of technique, and lack of practice. The skill is very important, the technique is very important. So minimize the risk of catheter-related bloodstream infections are very important. If you don't use the efficacy of catheters in proper manner, the risk of infections are going high. So that is one more important. To increase indwelling time of the venous access devices. Why we have to do slash methodology, especially flushing of technique? It is very important because the venous access will be, patency will be high, and you can't get easily thrombus for the venous punctures, and it may not get occlusions, and patient cannula will be at least safe for 3 days. So as per policy, phlebitis tracker in a hospital policy, 72 hours we can maintain. According to your institute, as per CDC, and when you take about NHS hospital protocols, or when you take Indian guidelines, all our critical care doctors, either everybody is talking about only IV cannula can be kept for 72 hours. If you are maintained patently, the cannula can be kept for 5 days, but only the pediatric and neonates certain consultants are allowing. Otherwise, 72 hours practice, once the cannula is not patent either, when and where required, you have to remove the catheter. To maintain that catheter patency, either it is EZV or IZV or a catheter, you have to maintain this flushing technique protocols. What kind of flushing technique protocols you had to follow? I think Mahaling, my screen is not visible. Can you make it little more smart because it is not visible? According to Infusion Nurses standard practices, I think we all enrolled in Infusion Nurses Society. Even Telangana chapter, it was launched in 2014, and many of our nurses are taken life membership card in Infusion Nurses Society. We have taken both that we will take care of our patients without having any VADs and CLABSI and CRBSA. That is the reason the Infusion Nurses Society has aimed main goal for the nurses to give adequate knowledge on this and what kind of technology techniques they're supposed to use and how they have to involve into the nursing audits to bring this rate should come down, VADs and as well as CLABSI infections and CRBSA. So to make that, the efficacy of knowledge is very important. So time of the lock solution should equal internal volume of VAD and added device plus 20% and use flush with 10 into 1 ml boluses with a time of interval 0.4 seconds between two boluses. This is what INS has been given certain guidelines where you have to which interval every VAD whenever you are giving between one injection to other injection, one fluid to other fluid, one inotrope to other inotrope. You need to see which line you are using. Whether when you are giving inotrope, are you connecting any other hypoosmolar solutions? Whether when you are connecting for narcotics, are you using any antibiotic in that line? This is very important as a nurse, the efficacy of lines and patency to maintain. So to prevent VAD or CRBSA infections, we should know as a nurse what kind of triple lumen, double lumen, single lumen, either IV catheters, internal jugular, external jugular we are using. What kind of patency of lines we are maintaining, how to flush, what kind of flush technique we have to follow as a protocol, what kind of slash methodology we have to use when you are using catheters. This is very important methodology where we have to apply our techniques. So method and technique, most common procedure is often called SAS. Saline, administration, medication, and saline. This is called SAS methodology, which I told you. So SAS is nothing but whenever you give antibiotic, so you need to give medicine. First, you have to push saline, 0.9% sodium chloride. Sorry. Whenever I think many products has come into the market. The products are nothing but even BD companies introduced the syringe of PosiFlash. Now Polymed has come with PolyFlash. Many companies are getting that pre-filled syringes. I think you all know that many hospitals are using to prevent this VADs and prevent CRBS. So where you have to use this SAS methodology whenever you give inotropic support or whenever you handle emergency drugs, especially when cardiac arrest occurs, you give this as a adrenaline is a drug of choice. We will push the adrenaline. Sometimes repeat cardiac arrest, we will give every 5 minutes when people who are attended for ACLS, I know how effectively we use epinephrine drug. So how to do SAS methodology. So that is very important. Each drug you have to push saline and then drug, then saline. Either you take 3 to 5 ml or 10 ml. Certain drugs have patency. If you give narcotics or if you are giving high-alert medication, better you use 10 ml. PosiFlash, either, PolyFlash, either 0.9% sodium hypochlorite or distilled water. This is very important as a SAS methodology. Everybody remember this technique. So please remember saline, medication administration, again saline pushing. This is called SAS flushing technique. You had to push normal saline, either 0.9% sodium chloride. Then you have to push your medication, whatever medication if you are giving, especially high-alert medications. And when you are giving narcotics, when you are giving inotropes, you need to push again saline, even hand antibiotics. This SAS methodology, every nurse mindset, it has to be evolved. They have to think that this is very important technique. Maybe it looks very simple, but it is a major technique where you can avoid your CRBS and your VADs. So use single dose system for all VAD flushing and locking. Commercially available pre-filled syringes may reduce the risk of CRBS and save staff time for syringe. I agree with this point because when you especially if you want to put the cannula, in olden days we used to prepare a cannula tray set consists of different sizes of cannula because anatomy of patient we doesn't know. We used to select 3-4 cannulas and we had to take tourniquet, Macintosh, and pre-fill syringes. We will not be in that time. So olden days it is not available. We used to take 10 ml syringe, 5 ml syringe. We had to load the, time also can be saved. So now it's a readily available pre-fill syringes in the market, 3 ml, 5 ml, 10 ml. Many companies are procuring those syringes, and many hospitals has been started to prevent CRBS. If multi-dose vials must be used, dedicated a vial to a single patient. Don't use intravenous solution container, especially bottles or bags for obtaining flush solution. This is a valid point which I have mentioned here. Usually our
Ma'am, I would like to interrupt. Actually, some audience request is going little past. Little, can you little bit slow, so that they are not
yes,
request you.
Sorry. Yeah, I'll go slow. Okay, sorry. Usually my voice is little, fast.
Yes.
Okay, I'll go little slow, especially when we are using multi-dose vials. I think you can name it multi-dose vials are nothing but your Gylokin local anesthesia will use, heparin we will use in cardiac ICUs. Okay, we may use for, narcotics sometimes for a patient. Not narcotics. These multi-dose vials, whenever we are using, we need to only dedicate it to the patient. Nowadays, there is no multi-dose vial policy, keep for 21 days and later discard. This is not that. So single use, single flash, single syringe. That is a technique where we are following. So whenever you are using intravenous solution containers, especially, our nurses' tendency, they just cut 500 ml bottle, they'll go each and every time and take 10 ml syringe. After antibiotic, they flush it. Many organisms, many pathogens will be lie on that bottle, and you never change the dates, and you never have a habit of, having proper appropriate techniques, sterile techniques, and you just pushing the organisms into the patient catheter. So please avoid this point. I'm stressing you, all my youngsters, because young nurses, I'm not blaming them. This is a culture where they have been adopted wherever they're tried. Many of them are not get acquainted with knowledge. So please stop this technique, whoever using bottles or bags. It is really the pathogens grow with those bottles, and you are directly killing, you are directly giving infection to the patient and killing, we are giving harm to the patient. And there your infection rates are going high. Please don't use this technique. And flushing is a fundamental, which I wanted to stress on final point. Flushing is a fundamental clinical intervention that will assist the maintenance and preservation of any optimally functioning vascular access devices. This flushing technology is very important. This technique everybody should follow as a fundamental rule. Think that this is a basic procedure, but which is there is so much theory on that, so much evidences are there where you have prevented CRBSA infections and vascular access device infections. So maintaining patency is always been considered essential for all types of venous catheter. Flushing with NS is important and probably the most crucial factor in the prevention of malfunction. This is very, very valid point. Okay, your patency of line will be appropriate when you do flushing method, flushing technique, or your patency of lines will improve, and your patients feel happy, and they may not easily get swelling. They may not have thrombus problems. They may not complain, sister, my IV cannula, morning you kept, within an hour they may complain that, sister, my IV cannula is pain. So kindly I request all my youngsters and my leaders to use this SAS methodology, following pre-filled syringes, whichever company, I am not recommending for any company, whatever feasibility of your hospital, whatever you think that is cost saving for the patient, that is prime role. Whichever cost saving, which is best technology with evidence-based practices has been proven, those pre-filled syringes can be used. So with this signing note, I say everybody to thank you. If you have any queries, post session we have 10 to 15 minutes. All the participants, we have given question answer session. You can ask me if you have any doubts. Please ping me in the chat. Either you can call me after post panel discussion. So over to you, Mr. Mahalingam. Thank you one and all.
Thank you, ma'am, for wonderful session. I hope that all the audience have got overview on the flushing practices. Now, I would like you only to lead the panel discussion.
Yes. Now, first, I would like to ask Pramila. I think her experiences and her views and her thoughts. Ms. Pramila, can you share about explain the development of biofilm in vascular access catheter, and what is the role biofilm in CRBSA infections? Can you brief us what is biofilm vascular access catheters and how it will help for patient care, and what is the role biofilm of CRBSA? Over to you, Ms. Pramila. Can you explain us? Ms. Pramila, you're here?
Thank you, Ms. Swati. Actually, we all know that biofilm means it's new terminology for every nurse who is sitting here. Even it was a very new term, but still we know that biofilm is nothing but it's a formation of it's a process where microorganisms irreversibly attached to grow on a surface. It produces extracellular polymers. Like it can grow any and different many surfaces. For example, if we take in dental plaque, a slimy buildup we can see there. That is the biofilm. To simply, I can say that if you see in the water pipe, there is a green color patchy we call. That is the biofilm that which we have the biofilm. The same biofilm can cause in the CRBSA also. How it turns means there are blood materials like platelets get stuck up in the, then it may get a microorganisms and the colonization will form. So then we have to do we have to see that, and we have to push medication appropriately, and it goes inside. And if we are not clearing the way, there is a chance of forming biofilm. So we need to be thorough when we are flushing the catheters. Then there is a risk for CRBSA if the biofilm is formed, and intravenous catheteris is associated with risk of microbial colonization, and subsequently potentially severe infection also may occur. So with this biofilm, there is a CRBSA chances are more. So we need to take care of that.
Thank you, Ms. Pramila. I think it was wonderful information. Now I would like to ask Ms. Jeevita, can you brief me about different types of catheter used for patient during treatment process and common complications associated with catheters? Ms. Jeevita?
Yeah, ma'am. If we take intravenous infusion therapy, it's a best practice because most of the time we use this IV cannulas or periphery PICC lines. Most of the time we use to administer medication IV fluids. You can see if the patient got most of the patients will be on IV cannula. So the cannulas will be categorized into periphery IV cannulas, what we use regularly, the IV cannulas, and central lines. Those are called central venous catheters. If we see central venous catheters, again, it has been classified into two types. Those are tunneled and non-tunnel catheters. Tunnel catheters are very thin and it can be used as a long-term purpose, and it may not be into the vein. It can be kept under the skin. So the examples for tunnel catheters are the chemoports. If you take the non-tunnel catheters are the what we use in a critical patients, those are central venous catheters. It can be kept any where, like most preferred site are the internal jugular vein. Even we put in the subclavian, femoral, it depends. Apart from that, might be you can see the midline catheters. It is like same IV cannula, but the size is varies comparing to IV cannula. This IV cannulas most of the time we may use to have 4 arms. This midlines also we use, but the purpose and the gaze of the cannula will be differ comparing to the IV cannulas. And the IV cannulas, central venous catheters, most of the catheters can be kept in the vein, but the types of the catheters will be selected based on the priority. If the long-term use means most of the time we can use for the central venous catheters, as I said. Apart from that, we can use for the chemoports, because chemo patients, you all aware of it, the vesicant drugs will be, and the drugs also very vesicant, and it be very problematic to go through the veins. For those patients, chemoports are very helpful, and it is long-term use. And apart from that, PICC lines, those are called periphery inserted central catheters. Those catheters also, like these, all the catheters will be connected to the superior vena cava. So whenever you are handling these type of catheters, either it can be PICC lines or the central venous catheters, intravenous catheters, you have to aware that what are the precautions you have to take before handling the catheters, and what type of the catheter, then the selection is very important as a nurse. Because unnecessarily we should not put central venous catheters for the patients. Really, if the patient requires, yes, you have to put the catheter. So based on the medications or the treatment, try to select the catheter as we require. Either it can be periphery, central, or the PICC lines or chemoports. Coming to complications, you all are aware of it. Main, whenever the patient is on IV cannula, might be we have seen most of the sisters used to tell patient got swelling. It's nothing but like there will be an inflammation of the vein, which is called as a phlebitis. And sometimes we may have redness. And apart from that, there may be a chance of hematoma. And the sister who is taking care of the cannulas, they should understand the different complications. Either it is thrombosis or hematoma. To see the difference between the thrombosis and hematoma, most of the time thrombosis can be formed within the vessel. Because you all know the intravenous, the name itself it is giving, it can be into the vessel. So the formation will be in the vessel, or sometimes whenever you see the hematoma, the formation will be outside the vessel. And apart from that, there may be a chance of thrombophlebitis. And most of the time, as I mentioned, chemo patients, there will be a chance of extravasation and infiltration. You all should, you should be able to differentiate what is extravasation and what is infiltration. The infiltration means, see, most of the time it will be clot, the swelling will be occurred within the vein, whereas infiltration, which will be caused because of non-vesicant drugs. See, infiltration also dangerous, but comparing to extravasation, infiltration is less complicated. So whenever the extravasation means the fluid will not be into the vein. The escape of the fluid will be the subcutaneous tissues. By that you can able to identify the extravasation. So being a nurse, you have to be able to differentiate whether the patient is having swelling or redness, anything, because to prevent these type of complications, you have to aware the VIP score. All, young who is watching, might be, you know that visual infusion phlebitis, which is very helpful to prevent the complication. Always I try to say for my staff also, try to give discount to a patient, not bonus. Means try to minimize the complications, not only with the invasive devices, anything, but try to decrease the complications and decrease the patient's stay and improve the quality. And these are the complications will be occurred through this periphery IV cannulas. And coming to central venous catheters, I mentioned, right, either it can be into the IJ, intrajugular vein, or subclavian, or sometimes femoral, but most preferred site is internal jugular vein. There will be a chance of pneumothorax, hemothorax, and I mentioned earlier, it will be into the superior vena cava. Sometimes if the catheter has been not passed properly, there will be a chance of pneumothorax or hemothorax. Sometimes the patient may have arrhythmias because it, as I know, means the conduction starts from SA node. The accidental puncture also will be dangerous. And these are the main complications we can see if the patient is on central venous catheters.
I completely agree with you, Ms. Jeevitha. It's a valid point which you have mentioned. Many of our nurses, they think that when they are handling, especially central venous catheters, either PICC lines, and when they are handling chemoports, either external jugular or internal jugular, they think that sterility is not important. We can wear even normal safe touch glove and I can handle any catheters. Nobody is seeing me why I have to use only sterile glove, how to handle. I agree with you to decrease this CRS. Very valid information which you've given. So now I'm going to ask Ms. Swarani, what is your opinion on like certain complications? So we all understand that there are every invasive device, whatever procedure you do, wherever you have invasive devices, each and every procedure, there is a pros and cons, okay? There is a benefit, there might be a complication. So there are certain complications patients may arise. Being an infection control nurse and as an educator, what all challenges when you are seeing, when you go for rounds, what kind of challenges in and out you have seen? What kind of nurses are practicing? Are they practicing appropriate methodology, appropriate techniques by using sterile techniques or non-sterile techniques? How do you prevent infections, and what kind of education or what kind of rounds, what kind of motivation you give during your rounds, how to manage these complications or consequences? Can you briefly explain me about this flushing importance on intravenous catheters? Over to you, Swarani.
Yeah, thank you, madam. Usually starting with while the time of insertion of a cannula or any procedure which has been done, the starting step what we use is the hand hygiene techniques. Once the steps has been followed particularly, then there will, as of my knowledge, we don't introduce any infection to the patient directly at the time of insertions. So by the time we have a hand wash and the aseptic procedure what you are following, before going to any procedure, it might be PICC line or it might be central or it might be IV canalization also, whichever has been done to the patient. So everything depends upon the healthcare nurse who has been initiated by the hand washing techniques and the procedure done aseptically and technically without any complications interrupted in between during the procedure. So by the time they introduce any canalization, as we discussed, there are many complications. After introducing any indwelling catheter, patient might be landing up into any sort of infections arise from the self of the patient, nor from the hospital acquired infections also. So in order to prevent all these, only basic 2 steps will follow, madam. It's like starting, we have to take care, we have to educate or we have to give up the training to all the staff, teaching them the hand washing and the hand hygiene is a basic technique for every procedure what we follow. And once the IV canalization is been done, so as in the PPT we have discussed, like there is a SAS procedure, nothing but a sterile, it's like a saline flush, administration of the medication, and again the saline flush has to be given intermittently. Whenever the cannula is being in use, first before checking for the patency of the cannula, it might be PICC line or it might be the central line. The volume of the fluid which is being entered through the cannula, before administration of the medication, the saline flush has to be given. So before giving an administration, whatever the procedure has been done, we have to carry it out aseptically all the time whenever the nurse is being attending the patient. So next, administration of the medication will be followed by the saline flush. Next, again, the saline flush will be given, introduced to the patient in order to clean the pathway of the IV cannula, nor the PICC lines or the PMO lines which has been connected to the patient. So these all will be handling it's like these are the main steps which has to be followed by the nurse in order to prevent the CRBSI or any air embolism or some other complications like catheter ruptures and any swelling or any local area infections. In order to prevent all this, mostly we will be checking the cannula patency. So when coming to the central line, it's like we give a flush prior to the administration of the medication. We give a flush. So it's a minimum flush we can give as a 0.9 ml of 9% of NS can be administered to the patient. Nothing but we call it as 9% NS that can be flushed to 3 to 20 ml can be given. After that, the administration of the medication will be given. And again, in order to clean the patency, in order to clean the airway or the line of the PICC line or the IV cannula, that has to be cleaned again with the saline flush. So these all will be maintained by the nurses, and we mostly educate. We have to educate the sisters to see whenever we give a flush, it's like pre-filled syringes, as we know that it's a new technique now we are following for in the hospital. For giving us a flush instead of refilling the syringes, newly loaded syringes along with the air, in order to prevent the air embolism and other complications to the cardiac, in order preventing the cardiac issues. So we will be using a new technique like pre-filling syringes, which has been which has been promoted newly by few pharmaceutical companies. So that it will be preventing the infection instead of loading that from the normal saline, nor from the sterile flush, and which even protects the needle stick injuries before administration of the medications, and that even it's like that even reduces the deep vein thrombosis to the patient. So these all protocols, whenever a nurse can follow all this, the patient will be in a safer state, so that any infections which are supposed or which will be entering the patient, that will be precautionarily itself only will be handling through all the medications.
Thank you, Ms. Swarana. It's a very valid point. I know that hand wash is a major technique where our nurses will miss out any procedure. Before doing any procedure, our fundamentals has been taught us we have to go for hand wash. Many nurses, they think very lightly that step, why we have to go for each and every time. But that you emphasize hand washing is very important to do any procedure where our infection rates are going down. If effective hand wash make us better, and many infections will come down. It's a valid point, Ms. Varani. You have covered what kind of complications and how it affects and what kind of, how it helps by using hand wash techniques, everything it suffices with the patient efficacy. So now over to Pramila. Pramila, I can ask you, there are many flushing technology, many flushing methodology many hospitals are following. Means one hospital will follow one technique, maybe other hospital will follow other technique. They have their, set of protocols by their unit, and they have been, organized by their curriculum into certain SOPs. I want to ask you an opinion from audience poll. What kind of flushing solutions you are using in your hospital, and how it affects and the efficacy of flushing solution, and what volume can be used for flushing. This as RN point of view I'm asking, because little RNs may not be knowing certain CKD patients whether we can give 10 ml, 20 ml or 30 ml. They may have this kind of tendency of questions. So behalf of their, even I have this doubt, can you brief about what kind of flushing solutions can be used and what amount of volume can be pushed for the patient criteria? Can you briefly about tell me about that? So
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Swati. According to national guidelines, only the normal saline 0.9% sodium chloride only is used for all the flushing of the lines, and we have found that insufficient evidences to suggest heparin. So saline solution is a more effective solution, and maintaining a lumen patency, and heparin is known to cause serious adverse events in susceptible patient. We know that most of the patients we are not supposed to use the heparin because we use only heparin in such patients where we require only. Use of heparinized solution maintain central venous access devices function has been an accepted practice for decades. So despite of the lack of definitive high quality evidence to support continued use, and more emphasis is being on risk associated with heparin use. So we are not supposed to use the heparin in all the patients. And why only we are using saline is suggested that sodium chloride and water, there is an isotonic in nature, because normal saline is close approximation to the salt concentration of human blood. So it's compatible with your body chemistry, and it maintains good fluid imbalance. So the volume of locked solution should be equivalent internal volume of the vascular access device, and we have to add an plus 20% solution. So coming to heparin, with elimination of heparin is a flushing agent for general use. Heparin can result in serious side effects like we can have a heparin-induced thrombocytopenia we may get, and heparin-induced thrombosis and thrombocytopenia syndromes we may get, or allergic reaction may occur, and there will be a drug incompatibility, and possible iatrogenic injuries may happen, hemorrhage may happen. So there is an increase in biofilm formation here. So we should not use heparin in all conditions. And there is non-inferiority of normal saline versus heparin in favor of its use for flushing and locking procedure, any type of venous catheter. So we should not use heparin for all the catheters. And anticoagulants is still recommended only for dialysis catheters. Whenever we do dialysis, hemodialysis, we use this solution for dialysis patient. Heparin is used. That is as per the recommendation by the doctor, we will be using. And the anticoagulant sometimes for the pediatric catheters, umbilical catheters also, it may get blocked. So when doctor is recommended, we are using this umbilical catheter also, heparin is used. And it is also still recommended for arterial pediatric catheters also. And hemodialysis locking also, they will be using the heparin, 1000 units per ml they will use. And there will be 4% citrate and antimicrobial lock solutions also, where it is when it is required to use, it will be used. In our hospital, we are practicing these are the methods. And now as per even INS standards also, now the studies have shown that saline has to be used. But whereas we are nowadays preferring for central lines to flush, quasi-flush, as it is a time saving thing, and we can prevent so much of contamination from getting loaded, and we can avoid many bloodstream infections. So we are also preferring to use Posiflush in certain conditions.
Very well taken note. Nice take-home message you have given, Pramila. I agree. Many patients, people who are affected with thrombocytopenia and people who are in cardiac markers are elevated, where it is not recommended. Heparin only by prescribed by the consultant, either doctor, whoever in under supervision, only the heparin can be used, because anticoagulants plays a major role and patient may have sudden BT. There are many situations where we have seen nurses push hep blocks and heparin blocks, and patient may go into over bleeding, and we have in my lifetime I have seen 2 patients with where over induced of heparin by heparin locks, not now, I'm talking about 10 years back, 1 decade back, where nurses doesn't know the role of heparin and they have been done, and where we have given antidote of protamine injection in my practice. So then I was a ER nurse. So I agree with your point, and it is very valid information. Heparin cannot be used where you recommended by consultant. I agree that saline is very helpful to flush this by using Swarani and you or me or whoever says for youngsters, the SAS methodology by using of 0.9%, pre-filled syringes where contamination were less, and the time saving factor. So now over to Jeevitha. Describe challenges with manually prepared saline flush in nursing practices. Can you brief about it? Like while handling, especially our young nurses when they are in bedside, what kind of challenges they are physically, mentally, psychosocially, they are, not deployed appropriate manpower. They always crib for manpower as leaders, and we don't have time, ma'am. We have many challenges. You want us to do this thing, that thing, so much of work you are giving, so many audits, phlebitis tracker, that audit, this audit. When we want us to do something for their own benefit to write in nursing journals, they have many challenges. To face the challenges, what kind of manually prepared saline flushes in nursing practice? Are you recommend, either you will not recommend, and what is your opinion on that?
See, ma'am, actually coming to the point, a manually prepared flushing solution, obviously there may be a chance of contamination because it is not readily available. Pre-filled syringes, see, for everything, as you said, there will be a pros and cons. If you see manually prepared flushing, I mean, these things, what is happening? Because they have to select the sometimes it may not be required 10 ml. As I mentioned, the flushing technique, just now Pramila ma'am also said, it depends how much ml we have to push. For everybody, we can't push 3 ml, 5 ml, 10 ml. It depends, right? So whenever they prepare the flushing the solution, manually prepared solution, taking of syringe, and sometimes if in a hurry, they may take 500 ml NS, or practically I'm talking 100 ml NS. And apart from that, if you see the cost of syringe and the solution, obviously they may equal to the pre-filled syringe. And if you come to the advantages, whereas pre-filled syringes, time waste may not be there and it is easily available. For manually preparing, there will be a chance of time waste because they have to take the syringe, they need to load and they have to label. If they have not labeled properly, there may be a chance of medication errors and time consuming, as you said, because in nursing fraternity, there will be a shortage of staff, as we all know that. So the comparatively, the nurse-patient ratio also more. For that, during that situation, might be they may not give, and obviously there will be a chance of CRBSI. And apart from that, the patency of the cannula also may not be mentioned. So these type of challenges they may face. So see, anyway, we are working for the patient, try to implement the good practices. Yes, cost wise, if you think also, the advantages and disadvantages, if you see, the pre-filled syringes are more comfort to the staff. And apart from that, it is the manually prepared syringes, what is happening, there will be a more sharp, isn't it? For that reason, there will be a needle stick injury for them. Whereas pre-filled syringes, the sharp items may not be there, and there will more safety for the healthcare professionals comparatively for manually prepared solutions. As per my note, the pre-filled syringes are better than manually prepared solutions.
It's a very well valid point. Time saving and cost saving, where your 100 ml saline or 500 ml saline, if you charge against patient, and that can be, you know, more contaminations and many pathogens and many microorganisms will develop, where our nurses, we have to stop to encourage using by 500 ml or 100 ml saline. Start encouraging them to use this pre-filled syringes, and where, you know, contamination is very less and sterility will maintain, and the efficacy of lines are good. So they can use single use, they can dispose it. So there is less contamination, less organisms, less infections. So I also can recommend this pre-filled syringes, or any company, not only promoting one company. We can save time, where we can save patients' life, reducing with infections. So now over to you, Swarani. Can you explain me about flushing and locking principles and it rationalize the procedures? Why our nurses should flush the catheters? How it impacts in patient care, and what kind of, you know, locking principles they have to follow? How it helps in the care? Can you rationalize it? Over to you, Swarani.
Madam, whenever we are giving a medication to the patient, prior flushing of the cannula shows the patency. So the patency of the IV cannula or the central line or any PICC lines which has whatever the indwelling catheters which has been kept to the patient, that shows a patency, whether the line is being patent or whether the line is not working or not working. In order to see all this, we'll be giving a pre-flush to the prior to the medication. And even whether we can find any infections, or as we discussed, any biofilms has been formed on whether the patient has been clinically symptomatic, seen like any increase of temperature or any TLC values. It's like any WBC counts are being differentiated as before. So that shows other infections which are being present in the patient's body. So whenever we are giving any medication to the patient, before to that, saline flush is a mandatory thing we give to the patient. First of all, to see the patent of the IV cannula or any PICC line or any center line, and whether it is being working properly, we'll be knowing that. And to decrease the thrombophlebitis, or to decrease any infection related to the it's like any lines which has been connected to the patient, priorly itself only we'll be checking whether it is being swollen or whether the patient is being clinically symptomized, whether he's not recommended to take a specific medication or not.
Yes, I agree with you, Swarani. Nurses should know how to flush and how to lock, and where to less contaminate, and how to take care of lines is very important. Being a leaders, it is our prime role to educate them, and we have to go and monitor when they are handling IV catheters, either where they are putting IV cannulas, either when they are handling central line catheter care, or whatever it may be. It's our prime responsibility. Frequent audits can help us to minimize infections, and frequent monitoring can be help us to reduce infections, where our nurses are, you know, doing any minor mistakes, where we can catch up and we can train them, and we can analyze with their data, and we can showcase them into the nursing journals. This is very good point. Now over to Pramila. What are the special consideration while flushing intravenous catheters? So it means like that is like do's and don'ts of intravenous catheter flushing. Can you overview about your thoughts? Over to you, Pramila.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Swati. When we are doing this, we see that several drugs are incompatible with normal saline and use flushing with 5% dextrose in water. Few patients, doctors will advise that to take dextrose, but that there is a chance of getting biofilm formation with the dextrose. So we should not allow dextrose to reside in the catheter. Lumen provides nutrients for cells within biofilms. So if indicated, also heparin should be diluted in normal saline instead of dextrose in water, so that the line gets cleared and there won't be any biofilm formed in that line. And we should not use a pre-filled flush syringe for dilution of medications. Mainly we have to think what the nurses will think. Yeah, I have already pre-filled syringe, so I will flush this pre-filled PosiFlush into my antibiotic vial and I'll use this. This will be an easy process. So they will do shortcuts, they will search. So we should not use pre-filled syringe for dilution of medications, and don't forcibly flush syringe against the resistance. And we should not flush the IV catheter if visible clots or thrombosis present. For example, whenever we go for rounds, we see that many IV lines gets backflow, and some three-way extensions, we can find that there are a lot of clots seen. And even in the IV sets, we see that there are a lot of clots are seen. So such times we have to educate our team that they should not flush with the saline directly into the vein. That may cause a lot of complications. So we should instruct all our youngsters that any clots which they see, immediately they have to remove the three-way extension or IV set, whatever it may be, they have to do. And before each medication administration, they have to flush and see the cannula is patent or not. If you find that any mild phlebitis, any visual phlebitis, if you find, immediately we have to ask them to remove the catheter and replace with the another IV cannula. So this is the major thing that we have to look into the clinical rounds whenever we are going at bedside. And don't flush the IV catheter without seeing that the clots, what I have told now, and use recommended saline for flushing as per the protocol, and scrub the access port or hub prior to accessing. And we have to always use 70% alcohol swab before flushing anything. We have many needle-free connectors if you see nowadays. So the needle-free connectors, every time we have to clean and use this. And always access IV site and flush saline prior to initiating any IV infusion, so that we will know that whether the line is patent or not. And continuous IV solutions, those who are at risk and for fluid overload, especially patients with renal failures and cardiac patients, we have to monitor their output and intake, because we don't know that maybe sometimes it may get overloaded. So we need to be very strictly following up those patients not to get overloaded them. These are the things that we need to follow. These are the do's and don'ts that we should follow while flushing and considering the flushing protocols.
A good take-home message, Pramila. Thank you for your good message. And now over to Jeevitha. Last question, which I wanted to ask you. Explain the current trends and issues in IV flushing. So what kind of trends we will follow, and what kind of issues while handling, especially young nurses, when handling of catheters, what kind of trends they have to follow, what kind of issues they are facing while flushing. Are you recommend any guidelines, or are you recommend for any practices, best evidence-based practices? Can you give your insights on that?
Strongly, I recommend for flushing, ma'am, because they have to flush the catheters. And trends, if you know, see, as per the institution, they have to develop some standards, because new nurses, if they do not have awareness, they may not practice. And moreover, most of the time, whenever they insert the catheter, they have to flush. And if the management side or from the GM side, if they have given proper guidelines, it will be helpful for them to maintain the standards. And apart from that, even as I mentioned, right, there will be a nurse page. Wherever we go, there will be a ratio wise matters. So based on the convenience of the staff, everything, if you develop the proper protocols, they may follow the rules and proper monitoring to be done. Especially we have to recommend for the flushing in order to prevent the occlusion of the catheters. And apart from that, to prevent the central catheter related or central line related infections. And moreover, if you flush the catheter properly, there will be the catheter stay will be improved, because the stay of the catheter will be good, because we know sometimes it is very difficult to put the cannula. So for those patients, proper technique if you follow, the catheter stay will be improved. At the same time, the burden for the staff also will be reduced. So strongly I recommend for the flushing with a proper solution. Heparin, as we all know, the heparin is not recommended, whereas NS is the isotonic solution, which is helpful to maintain the patency of the catheter, which are helpful to prevent the catheter related infections. And also it is comfort for the staff, at the same time improve the patient's outcome in order to decrease the infections.
Okay, Jeevitha, it's very valid information. Training and education is very important. Monitoring and supervision is very important. and educating our young nurses, especially when we do our clinical rounds. We need to emphasize on best practices, how they are doing, what kind of efficacy they are following while handling of IV catheters is very important information. Now over to Swarani. Swarani, can you tell about what kind of instruments or articles required for flushing for procedure, and flushing and locking means what kind of tray setup they want, what kind of procedure they have to follow, how you will audit, and how it helps them to improve patient venous efficacy, whatever catheter efficacy. Can you brief about it? Swarani, are you able to hear? Swarani, your voice is not audible.
Yeah, ma'am.
Yes, yeah. Go
Yes,
ahead.
ma'am.
You are clear with my question?
So the steps, yes, ma'am. So usually for flushing and locking, the first step we will be required. It's like manually prepare the flush with 0.9% of NS should be prepared, and alcohol swab for cleaning the hub prior to the administration or prior to the handling of the cannula or the set which is being carried away by the staff. So before that, first of all, we have to follow the aseptic procedures, or the sister who is handling the especially center lines or the PICC lines or other hemodialysis sheets or any catheters, apart from the peripheral lines which are being handled by the sister. The hub cleaning is the most important thing prior to the administration of the medication, because aseptic techniques are the procedures that has to be initiated priorly to the administration of the medication or reaching before to the patient. So by that, the infection will not be transmitted from the sister or by the things which she have been holded before going to the patient. So directly after doing the aseptic procedure, she'll directly be in contact with the patient. So she have to be in a procedure followed by the asepsis. And next, the hubs which are there present for the center line or for the any other lumens which have been connected, it might be 3 ways or it might be PMO lines or it might be PICC lines, whatever the lines which have been connected. First of all, the hubs has to be cleaned for this with the 70% of the alcohol solution, or with the it's like 70% of alcohol solutions with for the 15 seconds that the hub has to be cleaned prior to the administration of any medications, especially when a patient is being TPN, it's like a total parental nutrition is being administered to the patient. So that patient is completely been dependent on only on parenteral fluids. It's not like on other oral liquids to be passed through the line which has been connected to the patient. Priorly, they have to clean. The hub cleaning is the most important before administering the TPN. And even with the chemotherapeutic patients, or it might be on the patients on hemodialysis or the patients who have been immunocompromised, hub cleaning, it helps and it prevents the infection or getting decreasing the consistency or the decreasing the contaminations from the sister or from the nurse who is being handling the patient. And next, we have to check after cleaning the hub cleaning, she have to check for the cannula patency. She have to withdraw whatever the cannula has been present to the patient. She have to withdraw the blood. Unless the blood is being seen in the line, that has been considered according to the new guidelines, that has been considered the line is not being patent. So if you can find any airway or if the blood is not being drawn, it can be considered as the cannula is not being patent. So probably for hemodialysis sheets or PICC lines or the center lines, the blood will be drawn back when the blood has been collected for the samples. Once the sample has been collected, again the flush has to be given to the patient, and from the same and the minimum 5 to 20 ml of the normal saline of 9% of normal saline has to be introduced to the patient, so that the way or the pathway which is being there connected to the patient's line, that will be easier for the next medication. normal saline has to be given. And above all this, the hub cleaning is the most important thing, that the procedure has to be carried away for the 15 seconds along with the 70% of isopropanol. And SAS flushing, as we discussed priorly many times, as a SAS flushing method has to be followed. So whenever all these being followed, there will be less complications or less infections which is being transmitting from the sister or from another patient to the patient when a sister is handling his cases. And next, it's like push and pause pulsatile procedure is being carried away. Whenever we are giving a flush to the patient or any medication to the patient, it should not be flushed forcefully to the patient, or any loaded medications, like as we have a few points as we have discussed priorly. Pre-filled syringes, it's like pre-filled flushes which has been there to the patient, that should not be given flushed immediately to the patient. And next, once it is being flushed inside, immediately after entering that, we have to give a medication loaded by the another syringe, even that is also followed by the aseptic procedure. So all these things has to be carried away from the starting of the aseptic procedures by the sister who is being taking care of that particular patient. So then the cross contamination from the sister, not from the cross contamination which has been present in that particular department, or from that particular things which the sister has been carried, that will not be contaminated to the sister or the patient. So the hub cleaning is the most, and even after the, giving all the medications also, hub cleaning is a mandatory thing which has to be carried away to the patient, so that the process from the beginning till the last, the process is being under the control of an aseptic procedure. So there is no introducing of the infection to the patient. So the pre-filled syringes, that is a mostly required it's like mostly required thing which is being preventing infection, or which cannot raise any other complications to the patient. So all these aseptic techniques steps can be followed by the sister, and along with that we have to educate the sister. It's like they have to be educated thoroughly whenever the cases or whenever the handover has been given to the sisters. They have to be aware of the things what they have to do when a patient is on completely immunocompromised.
I completely agree with you, Swarani. Very valid point which you told. Hub clean is a very important and major role where analysis has to be evolved. 2.5% chlorhexidine with 70% isopropyl alcohol is recommended by WHO and CDC as well as our Indian guidelines. Many of our critical care consultants, whenever we become a nurse, when we have practiced as a CT nurse, MSU nurse or any ER nurse, whenever we are handling, especially with the ISAV lines and central line catheters or jugular lines, it's very important. Hub cleaning is very important. It plays a major role. Being a nurse, we have to emphasize our youngsters to use this hub technique with kind of proper guidelines, and we have to create a policy, and we have to emphasize with youngsters mindset where it is being proven, where infection rates are gone down with evidence-based practices. So it's a very valid information. And now I would like to ask Ms. Pramila, last but least, what are the different types of needle-free connectors available in the market, and how it contribute, like what kind of contribution of factors will be involved to consider while flushing different needles, as well as free connectors attached with the intravenous catheters. I think in market, many products are available while flushing of, when you are handling central line catheters, there are clave connectors, there are Q-sites, there are, many companies are producing many catheters. What is your opinion on that by using those clave connectors? Is it helpful for the patient benefit, or it is too expensive for patient life, or it will be minimize infection rates, or what is your opinion? Can you brief about it?
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Swati. These needle-free connectors are those are the essential devices for the patient who is on central line, who is the patient who is having the central line, because these needle-free connectors, it can help the patient for getting contaminated multiple times. They no need to go and just open the direct port and introduce the drug. They can have a connectors. Here I have a connector with a two-way. Like this, we have a different types of clave connectors, which is branded by different companies, which I am not promoting. Just we are showing an example that we have a single lumen catheter, double lumen catheter, and single clave. There are different types of claves like this, which can be used, and it should be thoroughly cleaned. The hub should be thoroughly cleaned, as already other panel members have specified that we have to use 70% alcohol. Already swabs are available ready-madely. For every single use, we have to clean the hub, then we have to utilize this. There are different types like this. We have a microclave, which is extremely versatile, neutral displacement, needle-free connector that can be used on peripheral, arterial and central venous catheters also for the administration of IV fluids, antibiotics, and it can be used even for the blood products also. Few clave connectors, but not all the claves. And we also have a medical clave that is also a needleless closed system device products from intravascular catheter tip and hub and the colonization. As per CDC, we should see that when we are using this clave connector, it should be a clear housing. There should not be any backflow coming, and it should be always clear in whenever we see that clave should be clear, and split septum should be there, and it should be easy to clean the hub, and there should be zero negative pressure. Whenever there is a backflow, we should not allow that clave to connect there because there is a chance of forming again biofilm in that. So whenever we are using this, make sure that we should follow these 4 things as per CDC, then we'll not have a problem. And always we have to consider that we have to clean with 70% alcohol, and the clave can be used up to 70 times when you are using 70 flush. That means whether you are using antibiotic or any drug or any solution, but up to 70 times only they can use pushing this clave. Once it is 70 times, then we have to discuss as per CDC guidelines, which is mentioned. And it says we have a different types of, we can see that now first BD, Polymed and different companies like Romson, we have different products, different brands, and it can be used even for, sometimes we were using this antibiotic dilution also. There are clave, which is needle free, so that we can get injuries can be reduced. So we are also having for antibiotic also there is a different clave. So there are different types of clave which we have needle free connectors, which we can avoid needle stick injuries. As we know that world is having lot of needle stick injuries. So many of our nurses are struggling with needle stick injuries. So we should bring a culture of getting needle free connectors, which will help to prevent the CRBSIs as well as all catheter associated infections.
It's a very valid information, Pramila. I really liked it. The point you missed, you stressed on it. Many nurses, if your world is talking about occupational health hazard, one of the major contribution factor where nurses are, having needle stick injuries. So these clave connectors are helpful because it is needle-free connectors, and the efficacy of line is very patent, and the prevention of infection, especially when you take, there are many evidences in the CDC site. When you go through, we have many evidences has been given by using this Q site or clave connectors. Many companies are contributing with research only. So these clave connectors are very helpful for the patient care, and the efficacy of needle stick injuries are come down, and patient sterility will improve. So there is no morbidity on patient care. Many patients will reduce on CRBSS as well as VAD infections. So I think for this session today, we are end of the session. Any panel members would like to share any other thoughts? You feel free to talk to us. Either any participants.
Yes, Swati, I just wanted to add few points. I forgot to tell here what are the different, like the frequency of flushing lines.
Yes,
so
yes.
Mainly, the frequency of catheter flushing depends on the clinical setting. For hospitalized patient, anyhow, we are using the medication. So it will be continuously flushed. Maybe if patients who is not being used flushing, we will be using every 8th hourly medication. That time we need to flush. Or if it is 12th hourly, we need to flush that. And any patient who is going with the central line or any chemo port, they should be getting flushed up every weekly compulsory, so that the patency will be free and there won't be any blockage to that. And as coming to the volume, we have normal saline catheter flushing ranges from 1 to 20 ml up to, and for short peripheral catheters, we have to do only 1 to 3 ml of saline to be flushed. And we should see that often it is unless a vesicant or irritating drug requires a larger volume. Otherwise, we need to flush only 1 to 3 ml. And as I mentioned before also, we have to see that whether the patient is renal failure patient or cardiac patient, that we have to identify. And for central venous catheters, always we have to use 5 to 10 ml is most frequently used. But whenever we take a blood sample, it is mandatory that 20 ml should be flushed, because we are taking from the large line. If you flush with 20 ml of saline, so that there won't be any blood backflow in that, and the saline gets flushed, the line will be clear. These are the few things that which I wanted to share. And those patients, as already I have mentioned, that who requires the heparin during the dialysis, hemodialysis and all, we need to use the heparin for those patients, because those are the big bore lines. So we need to use the heparin as per the doctor recommendation. Thank you. These are the few things that I wanted to share, which means.
So I agree with you. Anybody, Jeevita, you wanted to add up any other points?
See, whenever they take care of these lines, make sure that the lumen of the catheter and the selection of the syringe should be proper, because the lumen is very small, and if they have taken 10 cc syringe, it's okay. But whereas in PICC lines, most of the time we may use 5 cc. So the lumen and the catheter size, syringe size, always it should be matched. Because what is happening, if they select the syringe size is different, the lumen size may not be there, and easily the malfunction of the catheter may arise. So to prevent that, they have to select, and many of them watching this webinar, so most of them knows the topic, means they may know how what are the CRBSI, but whatever important points we have mentioned, like flushing technique and proper monitoring and proper guidelines, if they follow, because they should have will to do, then only we can see the patient outcome. So try to take the points which are highlighted and try to implement and try to improve the patient outcome. That main thing I have to highlight, ma'am.
Thank you, Ms. Jeevita. Swarani, anything you wanted to add? Ms. Swarani, over to you. Anything you wanted to add? Any more points?
The most important thing, all the nurses, it's like all this generation of nurses, what we do follow, it's like whenever the procedure is being carried, everybody, it's like all the sisters, like all the staff, they do think like the procedure has been already carried away. It's like it has been carried away in a aseptic procedure and a sterile procedure. And once the procedure has been cleared, whenever the catheters or the lumens or whatever the lines which are being handled by the sisters, they don't carry in a sterile way. As the procedure itself has carried in an aseptic procedure, thereafter the stay till in a hospital, till the discharge of the patient stay in a hospital, they don't take it in an aseptic way. Only thing, they start, go and they give a medication, they clean it off, and they just come back. But the only thing what we just want to give an information through this webinar is like aseptic procedure, once it is being started to the patient till the discharge of the patient, the procedure has to be carried away promptly in the same aseptic technique itself only. So all these lines also, it's like all these guidelines, all these topics, all which has been covered priorly in this webinar, we would like to share directly, like whenever we handle any catheter, that has to be followed promptly in an aseptic procedure itself only. It's not like only when the procedure is being done, the procedure has been carried away in a it's like in a sterile technique, but thereafter till the stay of the patient, that sterile technique has to be followed. Unless and until it follows, the infection to the patient will not, it will be reduced. If it is not being followed, the infection rate will be high, and the care what we have given to the patient and the outcome and what the goals and what we are doing to the patient, or what goal we have towards to one patient, that cannot be accomplished or achieved at the time of the care given to the patient. So we are saying like the care we are giving still, of course, as we being as a nurses, we are too dedicated to the patients. We might be busy, we might be having hectic schedules and hectic procedures done, carried away in any area, but still hand washing is the main thing that has to be followed. And all the things, the hub care is the mandatory, and the pre-filled syringes has to be carried away as promptly, one after the other has to be carried till the treatment process has been done properly. So we have to see that the care we give to the patient should go in a positive way. It's like a positive approach has to be reached to the patient. So then only the care what we have given to the patient, the output also we can expect the same from the patient. So all these procedures, as Pramila madam and Jeevita madam and everybody what discussed, All these has to be carried away in a positive way from the sister, along with the sterile techniques has to be followed till the stay of the patient in a hospital. Then we can expect a positive outcome of the patient.
It's very valid point, Swarani, you concluded. Even I agree with her. Many points are covered, my friends. My panelists, like using of appropriate hand wash technique and handling of catheters in appropriate manner with aseptic precautions, and using of pre-filled syringe, posi-flesh or polyflesh, whatever you wanted to pre-filled syringe for time saving and cost saving on it is not much effective on patient also, because rather than you're giving infection and getting high volume of patient bill goes. So when you are using appropriate techniques, the cost save will be there, and where you can prevent infections by using clave connectors or Q-sites, whatever, needle stick injuries can be prevented, and contamination cannot happen, and there is no spread of infection. There is no colonization in ICU patients. It will not be much in CRPS. If you see worldwide, there are many Acinetobacteria, Pseudomonas infections are going high with CRPS. You can prevent by using these clave connectors and using appropriate techniques, as Swarani mentioned. The day when patient admitted into the patient till he discharged, it's our prime responsibility, follow the patients. We have many bundles, every hospital's, catheter CLABSI bundle, they have been COTY bundle, they have, FLABSI bundle, they have, VAB bundle, many things bundles, the day of insertion to the day of discharge, even after post-discharge, if you send port, or if you patient send me central line where patient is required for 3 months stay for parenteral nutrition or TPN, or patient is who are immunocompromised where they wanted parenteral nutrition support for home wise. This catheter care is very important, as Swarani mentioned, hub cleaning. These are very important. I finally conclude all these tips are very important, and flushing technique, especially SAS methodology. The technique prevent complete eradication of infection. As my colleagues mentioned, one of my panel like Ms. Pramila, if patients are not affordable, at least 0.9% sodium chloride. Wherever patients are not required for medications very frequently, 8 hours, 12 hours methodology can be used. However, I think many young nurses will be benefited by this webinar. I can agree. If any participants would like to have question answers, feel free to ask. All we are here to answer you. All we are waiting for your questions to wait. Any panel members would like to answer whatever questions imposed by the team. My participants, I'm requesting, if you have any questions, please pose into the podium.
Ma'am, there are some questions. We are
ready to answer. Yes.
Yeah, there is a question. How to scrub the hub?
I think Swarani is the best person can answer this. Swarani, how to scrub the hub? Already she mentioned, but still there are some, somebody want to know. Swarani, will you answer? Should I answer? Swarani?
So
hub cleaning.
Hub cleaning is always it's always called as a aseptic procedure, where with 70% of propanol can be used. So the hub has to be cleaned for the 15 seconds for the clockwise and anti-clockwise for 15 seconds. It is carried for the 10 times to the clockwise and the same anti-directional, as it's nothing but like anti-clockwise 10 seconds. So overall the procedure can be carried for 15 seconds. So this has to be carried in a clockwise and an anti-clockwise procedure, along with the alcohol swab whenever the medication has been whenever the medication is supposed to be given to the patient. The hub cleaning has to be followed for the 15 seconds to 20 seconds. So the hub has to be cleaned with the 70% of propanol for 10 seconds clockwise and the 10 seconds anti-clockwise.
It's okay, Maha.
I think audience got their answer.
Okay. There will be less colonization, more, you can prevent even cross-infection.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there's one more question. So Asha Verghese has asked, I would like to know about the prevention of biofilm or bacterial colonization. How do you prevent this? I think Pramila ma'am can answer this.
Yeah, this prevention of biofilm formation, wherever we are loading, the surfaces should be with the antibacterial compounds. So we'll not have, like I have mentioned before, whenever we are doing the flushing, there should not be any particles left over in that catheter, because that there is a chances of forming a biofilm in that. As I have mentioned to you prior, biofilm is easy to make if you have a particles like microorganisms grown. It is through fungi and bacteria. So for example, if we take that, now how much precautions we are taking, because we wanted to avoid COVID getting from other people. So the same way, we have to prevent loading the drugs near antibacterial surface, and cleaning the parts, as we have mentioned that always we have to do the cleaning. And when we are flushing the lines, if we flush appropriately, these are the biofilms formation we can prevent there.
Thank you, ma'am. I think audience might have got answer. As you said that whenever there is a indwelling devices are there in the vessel, there is always chance that bacterial colonization can happen. This can be prevented with the help of flushing, so that colonization, bacterial growth can be avoided. So hope that audience got the answer. There is one more answer. There is
Air embolism may occur in every patient when we are flushing with the air bubbles. So always we have to see that any blood clots or any air bubble is there, we have to withdraw. Sometimes whenever we see in the clinical rounds, there is a center line which gets blocked, and we need to take out so much of air is gone. Maybe the nurses maybe hang the fluid, and the fluid goes, air enters inside. So sometimes will not observe, they'll be busy with some other patient or some emergency, so the air goes. Then whenever we that, immediately we have to stop, and first we have to withdraw the air. If we are pushing the air, there is a chance of getting air embolism. There is extensions. Whenever we see that bubble, we should always try to backflow that bubble, and we should never, whenever we are withdrawing and when we are giving also, if you see, for example, if you take even ABG syringe, we see that always there should not be any air bubble, because air may cause many things, and the report also can get wrong. So we should not flush any air into the patient's body, and we should not give any blood clots also to the patient. That may damage vessels, and patient may have air embolism, and it may lead to different complications. So we should never use whenever there is a air bubble or blood clot. Always we have to use the sash method. Then you will know that whether the patency is there, the line is clear or not, you will come to know. Then only you can push the any drugs or saline, anything, if the patency is good.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am, for your comprehensive answer to the audience. I think Jivita ma'am has raised, she want to answer this question.
For what?
You have raised that you want to answer this question.
Yeah, already ma'am has answered. No, same thing I would like to emphasize, because there will be any air, because whenever they insert administer the medication, there will be a chance of air embolism. So to prevent that, they have to aspirate. And apart from that, whenever they have cannula with extensions, most of the time they have to flush it properly. Otherwise, the precipitate, everything will be formed over the cannula extension, as we have seen the catheters. So to prevent that, they have to flush the catheters after removing the air from the catheter.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Overall, from both of you, I think audience might.
One question has raised by 70 times. What is that? I did not understand. One question has there. See.
Actually, I have mentioned that for the clave, no, somewhere I got this info that 70 times they will use the clave, because inside there is a spring that goes after that. They gave approximately 70 times it can be used, that clave connector, which is a single clave connector, that is with versatile one. So how we will count that? It is a documentation for the nurses. Yes, obviously it's a documented. Just I have given you the tip that we should not use more times. Maybe some people, they'll start connecting the clave connector, and the from the day of admission to till the day of discharge, we keep 15 days or 30 days. It is, we will lose the, whatever the content of fluid we have to give, we may lose that, what you say, volume of that clave. So that is the reason I have mentioned that we should not use more times than the 70 times which I have mentioned.
Okay. I think question has been answered. There, ma'am, there is one more question. Any special points for neonate in terms of flushing? Any panelist who would like to answer?
Same, the NS can be flushed, but the amount will be less comparatively with adults, as per my knowledge.
Yes, it's true. I do agree with the valid Jeeta. It should be given 0.5 ml to especially premature babies or when you have neonates. It cannot be given 0.5 to 1.5 cc, like 1.5 ml. It will not exceed more than that amount. So, but the technique is same as technique. The methodology is same.
But the amount will be less.
The amount will be less. The volume of amount can be given 0.5 cc to 1.5. It cannot be given more than that. Any more questions?
Thank you for answering the question. I hope it was a very great learning session for every point of discussion. I think audience might have learned a lot of importance of the flushing and outcome on the patient health during the patient stay at the hospital. So now I would like to request our medical affairs head, Dr. Ajit Guha, to give vote of thanks to all the panel members and the moderator.
Yeah, Mahalin, sorry to disturb you. They have mentioned one more question. In total, how much NS can be given as a flushing? In 24 hours time, only up to 30 ml only we can do the flushing. More than that, we cannot do flushing to the patient. That is what is the answer. Somebody asked that question. How much ml we can do saline flushing in a day? So it's up to 30 ml because we have more of cardiac patients, renal patients. So we should not go beyond that. As per requirement, if patient is not having any contraindications, then we can go for flushing.
As she mentioned earlier, as per disease condition, especially patients who all are in chronic kidney failure, patients who all are in pulmonary artery hypertension, PH with poor LV dysfunctions cannot be given fluid overload. Even Ms. Pramila ma'am was mentioned, it is not more than 30 to 40 ml because it according to the disease condition only we will do flushing. So
yes, sir,
I think over to Dr. Ajit. Hi Ajit, nice to see you on screen. Yeah.
Hi, ma'am. Good afternoon, ma'am. I've been listening to, though I joined in the beginning, then came back again. There was a parallel meeting going on, but I could catch up with almost the entire discussion. I think it was a really very comprehensive discussion. I thank you, Swati ma'am, for driving the discussions, to all the other panelists, Pramila ma'am, Jivita ma'am, Swarani ma'am, all of you who have taken these very important, taken out time to discuss this very important topic around flushing. As Swati ma'am was saying at some point when she was giving the overview, that like hand sanitization, flushing is thought to be such a very trivial thing. I mean, why should we even spend so much time discussing about it? But as I could understand from this discussion, that it is a huge area consisting not only from policy perspective, because then you have to have hospital specific protocols around flushing. What does the hospital believe and want to drive in terms of flushing practice? Second, it also has a process. A large part of it is process, because then you have so many types of processes. Aseptic non-touch technique processes, scrub the hub protocols, and then you have line care management, etc., VIP scoring methods, everything which is like integrated together. And then you have technology. The technology part is that what is there in the market today? Is it is the conventional system which has its own pros and cons, or there are some new technologies available there which can help not only the patient but also the healthcare professional. So I personally myself picked up these things, that when it came to technology discussion, then Pre-filled syringes was a major point which was discussed. It has got its definitive advantages with respect to driving down CRBSI rate, infection rates, and then improving work efficiency for overburdened hospitals where the nurse and the patient ratios are not the ideal ones. And of course, for the healthcare professional, it avoids needle stick injury and then the outcomes of needle stick injury, etc. So the policy part, the entire process gamut, and the technology part. And we also heard about needle-free connectors and very interesting discussion around needle-free connectors and how it is an important part of the flushing practice. How together these integrated technologies can work together to really bring down line infection rates in vulnerable groups of patients. And we also heard about different types of solutions. What are the current standards? What are the recommendations today, which are backed by very solid grounds of evidence? And now, after today's session, all those who have attended, all the new young nurses who have attended today's session would have very, very clear, ideas about what to do while they are handling flushing at the bedside. So I thank all the panelists. I thank our moderator, Swati ma'am, today. I thank Mahaling and the team there in Hyderabad who has brought together this forum for everyone. I thank all participants for taking out time for attending this very important topic today. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, all the panelists again. Thank you, ma'am, moderator, who has given her time even during a busy schedule. I know that everyone are running behind with their own busy schedule, but still they have given time for the sharing their knowledge to the audience so that it would help them in bringing current practices and certain improved practices to the patient healthcare, and which would bring the benefits to the patient as well as in saving the time of the healthcare providers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank you very
Swati
much.
and the panel members. I would like to thank Dr. Ajit, first of all, and Mr. Mahaling for taking a lot of efforts to conduct this webinar panel discussion. We hope to see in future many more like this, sharing a knowledge between among us and giving a small information to the young nurses, those who are now coming up nurses, because there are a lot of, we can see that lot of lack in the young nurses coming into the clinicals. So we need some more sessions like this to know young nurses, knowing about what is required and what is not required, how to do not only the flushing protocols, everything they should know what is going to happen. So thank you very much for taking the time and conducting this session. Thank you, Ms. Swati and all the panel members.
Thank you, ma'am, for bringing up that point. I think it's a very, very important point, and Polymed is committed to come back with, to organize such meetings with leaders in nursing practice who have been there, done that, know that what is the right thing to do for driving up patient safety. So we are committed to this agenda. We shall come back with more relevant topics which are important for patient and healthcare worker safety. And thank you, Swati ma'am, for agreeing to preside and supervise, moderate this entire session. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Ajit. It's my pleasure. It's my honor. Really, Polymed is doing wonderful sessions. Like I have seen every week, they're engaging nursing fraternity leaders to create driving force by Dr. Ajit. He knows what is the value of nursing today and how much little RNs, especially these new RNs, they were, many schools and colleges, they're not having hands-on training, their lack of knowledge, as Pramila mentioned, when being a leaders, we have many challenges. When they come for clinical rounds, when we go, they doesn't even see throughout their 4 years or 3 years, how to put cannula, how to handle cannula. These are all challenges we are facing, and these kind of webinars really helpful. Even as Pramila mentioned, we want more to work along with you, and Polymed is already, Ms. Pramila, Dr. Ajit is working as a back of seat driving force to meet Maha and Shiva every time, and he's interacting. Many leaders actually he's focusing to get this kind of sessions. So I would like to thank behalf of my panel members to Maha and Shiva as well as Dr. Ajit. We want more sessions like this, at least monthly, twice. We have to meet as leaders, and we have to put our training efficacy things. Many people should be benefited by these programs, not only theoretically on-job training, however we do, but some more skill module sessions. I think Maha today we discussed. I think he will convey message to Dr. Ajit what we are expecting from leaders. So that will be valuable information.
And our sincere request is that we should have some like workshop where the things can be visually seen to the staff.
Yes, yes.
That would help them to get into their mind. That is what I feel. Because if we tell, they'll listen and they'll go off. If we do it a practical session, they will remember and they will try to do that exactly. Though they miss 1 or 2 points. That is what it is.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Simulators as a skill lab techniques, Dr.
Yes,
Ajit.
yes.
Yes, anything? Thank you. I think everybody is done wonderful job. Out of busy schedule, you all been participated along with me, Ms. Pramila, Ms. Jeevita, and Ms. Swarani. And once again, thank you, Ms. Mahaling and Shiva, Dr. Arjit. Really, we are, being in Polymed along with you, we are driving this force, and our youngsters are benefiting by these programs. Once again, thank you all.